some were carrying placards demanding the freeing of Amritpal SIngh. At one point, one of the protesters climbed onto the balcony here. He pulled down the Indian flag and some people below were pulling it down. He then tried to hoist a Khalistan flag right there. At that point, he was stopped by a security man from the Indian High Commission.
इस तिरंगे की आन बान को बचाने के लिए कितने ही सिख सैनिकों ने अपनी शहादतें दी। आज हम ये सब महसूस करते हैं कि ये भावना सिखों की नहीं है। चंद लोग जो कर रहे हैं उसकी सिखों की भावना मत समझा जाए। सिख ना कभी ऐसी सोच रखते हैं, ना कभी रखेंगे।
Namaste, Jai Hind, and welcome to this edition of The Right Stand. I'm Anand Narasimhan. Ladies and gentlemen, one thing for every Indian that should never be acceptable is insult and disrespect to Bharat and any of the symbols that represent Bharat, which of course includes the national flag. And we as a nation need to tell a nation which allows such vandals a free run that this will not be taken lying down. India needs answers. India wants answers, and India will ensure that there are answers to how, why, and how come such an act was allowed. Why was this allowed? Why has not there been immediate, strong, stringent action taken? And why is there a certain level of, it's all right, nonchalance about it, this kind of an attitude? It all started on Saturday, ladies and gentlemen, after the Punjab police initiated crackdown on Amritpal Singh. These Khalistani vandals went on a rampage across the world. Incidents have been reported from London in the United Kingdom, Canberra in Australia, and San Francisco in the US of A. The pro-Khalistani elements were out on streets and insulted the Indian flag. These Khalistani supporters targeted the Indian High Commission, consulates, and even protested outside the Australian Parliament with a demand to free Amritpal Singh, who still remains absconding. Let's break this down for you. Have a look at this entire chain of events. On Saturday, the Punjab police launched a statewide crackdown on Amritpal Singh's Waris Punjab Day. 78 people arrested, 500 people detained on the first day of the crackdown. Amritpal still remains absconding. He is wanted in connection with several criminal cases against him, including spreading religious hatred. As of today, 112 people have been arrested so far by the Punjab police. Amritpal was under radar after he took the Ajnala police station by storm on the 24th of February, but the crackdown triggered pro-Khalistani elements coming out of their burrows and holes across the world. First, what happened in London? On Sunday, these Khalistani vandals and goons held a protest outside the Indian High Commission in the United Kingdom. The protesters chanted pro-Khalistani slogans. The absence of adequate security from the British side, very clear. The goons were able to storm the premises of the High Commission, climb up the ramparts up to the first floor, and even lay a hand on the national flag. Doesn't your blood boil, ladies and gentlemen, when you see somebody who thinks they can get away with such an insult by laying their vile hands on our tricolour? As you can see the visuals on your screen, one of these vandals climbing up that balcony brought down the tricolour, pulled it down. It was retrieved by the Indian officials. There was a gentleman who stepped out of the balcony from internally, pulled up, raised the tricolour, folded it, gave it its due respect. But this person continues to stay on the balcony, waving this Khalistani flag and trying to attach it there. According to reports, several window panes were also smashed by the protesters. But where is the security that is supposed to be provided by the British? Where is the security? There's just one or two cops, and this is what they're standing today. The cops arrived later on the spot after the incident. The Metropolitan Police said 2 members of security staff sustained minor injuries and an investigation has been launched. It's nearly 24 hours, if not more. What action has been taken? No updates. The Foreign Office Minister, Tariq Ahmed, said, and I quote, "The UK government will always take the security of the Indian High Commission in London seriously." But why were they not there at the time of the protest? Soon after the situation came under control, the Indian High Commission in London responded with an even bigger, grander tricolour. As per reports, London police has arrested one man on suspicion of violent disorder. One man. But what about the crowds that gathered there? And this window smashed at the Indian High Commission? That is symbolic, ladies and gentlemen. The more you try and bring us down, the bigger and brighter and greater we will be as a nation. Phenomenal message by the Indian High Commission. The MEA also, soon after the incident, has condemned the incident. The MEA even summoned the United Kingdom's senior-most diplomat in India and lodged a strong protest. The MEA has also issued a statement that says explanation has been demanded for the complete absence of security. It's a basic obligation of the UK government under the Vienna Convention. Lack of security at the Indian diplomatic premises is unacceptable. Expect from the government of UK to immediately arrest those involved. Stringent measures should be in place to prevent such incidents. After all of this, another protest is now being planned by this entity or organization that's banned in India called the Sikhs for Justice on the 22nd of March in London. The protest is to be led by designated extremist and terrorists Gurpatwant Pannu. SFJ is active in the US, Canada, Australia and also in the UK. The Indian government is monitoring the UK government's reaction. I'm going to check if we have... We're standing by for British parliamentarian Bob Blackman to join us any moment now. But these protests did not stop only with what happened with the desecration of the tricolour in the United Kingdom. It also happened in Australia. Thoughts coming in from Canberra, where pro-Khalistan elements gathered near the Australian Parliament in Canberra to protest against the Punjab police's crackdown against Amritpal SIngh and Warid Punjab Day. This is right amidst the rising number of attacks on temples and also the vandalism at the Indian consulate in Brisbane. So plenty of developments are happening, and especially where intelligence reports time and again in the past have shown that these elements are operating on foreign soil and working towards a secessionist movement in India against the sovereignty of Bharat. And these are all nations with whom India is getting into massive trade engagements and also strategic security engagements. Meanwhile, a Khalistani referendum was held in Australia's Brisbane on the 19th, which was a complete failure. Only a few hundred from this community turned up to vote. But remember, lately, attacks on Hindu temples have been rising. Australian agencies have been accused of being soft on such elements who have been openly prejudiced in their actions against other communities. It's not just a matter of political ideology. We at all points here at CNN News 18 say these are nothing but fringe. They don't represent the entire community. There's no equating one with the other. But these vandals must be taught a lesson, because if they are not nipped in the bud, their activities are not nipped in the bud, they will only be emboldened, ladies and gentlemen. First the UK, then Australia, and now the western coast of the United States of America. Khalistan supporters attacked the Indian consulate in San Francisco after officials removed the flag from the building. Even there in San Francisco, these elements tried to take down the Indian flag from the building of the High Commission of India. The supporters chanted pro-Khalistan slogans and tried to break doors and barge into the office. Now sources have informed CNN News 18 that India will take up the issue with the Americans too. Well, Jitat Rai Bhardwaj, editor of the Australia Today, is with us, and we also have Puneet Sahani, expert on evolution of Sikh identity and also this Khalistan terrorism. Namaste and Jai Hind, gentlemen. Greetings. It's very, very painful to watch what you proudly wear on your head, Puneet Sahani, for certain elements to lay their vile hands on. And Jitat Bhardwaj, despite repeated warnings to the Australians, these elements still are allowed to assemble and vandalize. Let's start with Australia. Why is this being allowed in Australia if Australian Prime Minister himself has made a commitment to Prime Minister Narendra Modi that this will not be allowed?
See, Anand, very clearly on ground, the local politicians are kind of hand in glove with these Khalistani elements. we have been telling this at least for several months now, that how in last year November's Victorian election, they were actively participating, handing over the leaflets for a number of politicians who are in power in federal government and in Victorian government. So they provided, they raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for those fundraisers for these the politicians who are ministers in Anthony Albanese's federal government and Daniel Andrews' Victorian government. So I do expect that they will look around, they will not do anything about what is happening right now. The pictures which you are showing of Canberra, the protest in support of Amritpal Singh, this whole thing is organized by one of the Melbourne Gurdwara, which is Miri Piri Gurdwara. And you'll be very surprised to note that this Gurdwara gang was kind of hosted in Australian Parliament last month by one of the Labour Party, I beg your pardon, Labour Party MP from Victoria. And they were shown around, and this protest was also in a way facilitated. The permissions were provided with the help and support of the staff of this MP. And one of their senators, Australia's left-wing Green Party, their senator went there. You can simply see there are 17, 18 odd people. He went there and addressed these people. And this senator has a long history of Hindu phobia. He has a long history of hating
Jitatrai
India,
Bharadwaj, I'm not an
colleagues.
Australian citizen, but I'm aware that Australia has the law, has absolute intolerance to any kind of racial abuse, any kind of activity that challenges the sovereignty of another nation, which is a friendly nation. In both these cases, these two clauses stand on this matter. Why is this still happening? If you are saying that there are politicians who are hand in glove, what is the Indian consulate there doing? What is the Indian embassy doing? Has it raised this strongly? And is the local police active than before?
See, after almost 7 weeks of what happened at Federation Square on 29th of January, now today they have released the photographs of people who were kind of responsible for that violence. It took them 7 weeks. However, the witness and the victims both have provided the almost 20 hours of video recording of what was happening on that incident. Victoria Police didn't act. Other police officers who are retired, we have talked to a number of experts. They were surprised why they are not releasing the. If they can't catch, they don't know who they are. Release the photo. This is a normal procedure.
Right.
Every third day they do it. However, they didn't do it. So all of a sudden, police officers are not incompetent enough not to do it. There is pressure from the government not to act hard on these elements. That's why it is happening.
Then that is surprising.
And,
if you are sitting in Australia and it's nearly midnight, it's past midnight that you are sitting and joining us live on a broadcast in India at this point, and I thank you for that, Jitatrai Bharadwaj. But if you are sitting there and you are saying that there seems to be political patronage to these elements and they want this to happen, then that's sinister and that's dirty. That's dirty politics. India should not stand up, and India should not tolerate this. The Australian country, the Australians and Australia as a nation is benefiting hugely from the trade agreement that we have signed with them. And if they do not respect that by respecting our culture, our sovereignty, and they are okay with an entire community being shown in bad light by a handful of rogue elements, then that is unfortunate. And it also, the responsibility rests on the Consul General, the ambassador there, who's sitting there in Australia. Coming to you, Puneet Sani, thank you for your patience. How would you respond to these elements? The reports say they are a handful, there were 10s, there were 20, there were 30, but they seem to be getting emboldened. Is it a free run for anybody who wants to charge at any consulate across the world, especially in the US now? What happened in San Francisco?
Jama Bharti. So thank you. I thought, I need some time, because I'm from history. So I'll just give you a perspective, maybe like now this is an issue. But as somebody who has studied the history, like it's not surprising. I'll tell you, like if you actually go through the archives, what the Khalistanis in Canada used to do, you're saying they have desecrated the flag. Do you know they used to enter the embassy? Please watch my words, what I'm saying. They used to enter the consulate and the embassies and burn the Indian tricolor on 26 January or Independence Day. This is what they, now this will like blow your mind. But I have just seen this all things. Do you know, like first of all, I think this was before Blue Star. So there is a name you would never hear. His name is Fauja Singh Bains. So Fauja Singh Bains, like I think in 1983 or something, he basically shot bullets outside in Toronto, outside the consulate. And thankfully or sadly, one of the bullets hit the policeman. That's why he was thrown into prison. And the Khalistani, when he released, they opened him a gas station or something like this. So this Khalistanis are terrorists, like this is like surprising to you, but I'm an old hand at this. Like I'm young, but I'm an old hand. I've studied the history. This is nothing very like they will not do. They are politicians. And it's not like, this is bad or that. You look at Mamata Banerjee. Mamata Banerjee was against this Bangladeshi infiltrators. But when they were started voting for her, she is the biggest, supporter of them. So politicians are politicians. What is the locus of responsibility is what you can do. So what the Indian government can do is inflict cost on them. So who are doing this? First, these are the Khalistani. You find them, they are saying, earlier they used to put in a blacklist. Blacklist means you can't enter India. You have to increase the deterrent. You find these people and put them no-fly list. No-fly list means that you can't cross the Indian airspace. So if you do this on people who in Australia, do you know what will be the cost? Because if they have to go to Europe or America, they have to pass by India. They will not be able to travel anywhere. So this is what the Indian government has. You don't have to plead this to anyone. And then, of course, you inflict the cost. We are going to degrade the diplomatic relation. Okay. Because when we do trade, we also benefit from them. But that is the second step.
Right.
You do one deterrent. I've been explaining this for 2 years. Like you saw what they did. Like they were like thumping their thighs. We will do this. And you saw when police acted, pulls and they started crying like this. Last 2 years. Do you see any fear in me? I know Khalistanis like this. These are the biggest cowards. You have put them on your head because you don't act. You do little bit. You put 5 people on this no-fly list. You see all of them start behaving. So, I think, I have a lot of respect for Modi ji, but he just wants to I have a lot of respect for Guru. He has become soft on Khalistanis. He has shown some respect. Our entire respect has gone down the country when people are seeing, these people in turbans, acting like animals. So this is my perspective. It may not please a lot of people, but what I say is based on facts, and you can verify what I'm saying.
No, I respect your being so candid about the fact that you can respect the gurus, but if you're not going to respect, if you're not going to crack down on those people who are bringing bad name to the entire community, how are you doing yeoman service? And you ask a very fair question of the Prime Minister, who has huge respect for the Sikh community. But that respect to the Sikh community cannot be limited only to the gurus. It has to also ensure that these people wearing those turbans cannot bring a bad name to the entire community. You cannot have a situation where these elements, these goons can be identified as Sikhs. That's wrong. They are not. And that's something, an example has to be made out of them, and it has to stand out. Jitat Rai Bharadwaj and Puneet, I request you to just stay with me because I think we have Lord Blackman joining us live. He's a little delayed, but he's with us now. So I'm going to go and ask him go across to him straight away. Mr. Bob Blackman, namaste. This is Anand Narasimhan here. We speak again. You were in Bharat the last time when we spoke.
Indeed.
Now you are in the UK, and what's happened is tragic. What's your first thoughts on what's happened over the weekend?
Well, my first thoughts are obviously for the 2 security guards that were injured during the unprovoked attack on the High Commission. My understanding is that one individual has been arrested and is still in custody, and the police are looking through the evidence to see if others should be charged with this vandalism on the High Commission. And the very brave people in the High Commission who put up the much bigger flag of India as a result are to be praised and welcomed. I will be seeing tonight, I will see the High Commissioner, the Indian High Commissioner in the UK Parliament. I've already expressed my sympathy to him and his staff over this attack. Clearly, this is not the first time that the High Commission has been attacked in London. What we do need to do is to actually stamp down on this very, very hard. I shall certainly be taking this up with Suella Braverman, who is our Home Secretary. When Priti Patel was Home Secretary, we had to take up the previous attack. And there has to be an immediate question, which you'll no doubt have from the various different contributors here. This is a series of coordinated attacks on Indian embassies around the world. It is clearly a conspiracy, it's clearly coordinated, and it's clearly deliberately aimed to cause trouble. Now, the security forces in the UK have questions to answer about what they knew about this conspiracy and why there was no police presence outside the High Commission when this attack took place. Because if they knew this was going on, there should have been police presence to make sure the sort of things that are appearing on our screens now didn't happen. The police arrived, as I understand it, after the attack had taken place, and obviously sought to arrest the individuals that were responsible, but many of them had left the scene by the time the police arrived. And frankly, in this day and age, we shouldn't have this going on in the streets of London. It's an absolute outrage. We've had Khalistani demonstrations before. We've had, when Prime Minister Modi visited London before, we had Khalistanis pulling down the Indian flag in Westminster Square and burning it in front of police officers. I've said that this is a direct affront to India, one of our closest friends and allies, and we should not allow or tolerate that sort of behaviour. We have a strong belief that peaceful demonstrations are permitted, but vandalism and attacks like this are most certainly not. And so we then have to look at who are the people behind this, who are the people behind this conspiracy. We know that there's been a number of incidents where people have been injured. We do know where literally terrorism has taken place. And if terrorism is taking place, then we have to review whether such organisations can act legally, either in our country or in other countries around the world. We need to coordinate our activities together with our friends and allies to put a stamp on this straight away. Otherwise, these people will get emboldened and they'll do something far worse. So my answer to them is, as I think you've been debating, the reality is that India is a secular country where everyone is valued regardless of their religion or background, and therefore there is no excuse for these vandals. There's no excuse for these people to be committing these acts of vandalism, and straight away we want firm action to stamp them out.
Lord Blackman, do you believe these people have political patronage? Are there elements within the British polity who are backing them?
Well, there's clear there must be some people from within the political establishment that give them some sort of degree of succour. The first thing I would say to those people is, if they're involved in mainstream politics, think again. This behaviour is just unacceptable in the most extreme way, and those people should dissociate themselves from the Khalistanis. They should make clear that nothing like this should be going on. I'm very clear that this very small minority of people need to be prevented from carrying out these sort of activities and their illegitimate aims disrupted.
Lord Blackman, Gurpatwant Panun is listed as a terrorist by India. His organization has been put on the banned outfit list because it carries out secessionist activities against India. They are operating on UK soil and they're calling for a referendum meet on the 22nd of March. Should the UK authorities crack down or will they allow it? What's under the definition of democracy? Is this allowed? And
Okay.
I underline this question with, if India were to allow secessionist elements from different parts of the UK to carry out activities in in India and target the UK consulate here, will there be a quid pro quo, or will the reaction be the same?
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, we should be treating these attacks on the Indian High Commission in London in the same way as we would if the British High Commission was attacked in Delhi. And the reality is that both would be absolutely unacceptable. It's one thing for someone to come along and wave a banner and protest peacefully. It's quite another for them to literally try and burgle the High Commission, smash windows, attempt to steal the flag, and obviously vandalise the High Commission, and indeed, of course, injure security guards who are just doing their job of trying to protect the building and the staff within the building. The fact that this took place on a Sunday, obviously, that there's only a skeleton staff operating on a Sunday, and therefore was obviously prone to interaction. Now, in terms of the people behind this, I take a strong view that if our friends and allies in India have prescribed an organisation, then we should then be acting in concert with our Indian friends and allies in saying, if they're prescribed in India, they should be prescribed in this country. And I will certainly, as I say, be discussing with the High Commissioner what we can do to persuade our Home Secretary and our security forces to say, look, this is an organisation that deserves to be prescribed, which, by the way, if that happens, it will be illegal in this country to be a member of it, to support it, to wave the flags, as we've seen, and to act in any shape or form to support that organisation. That, to me, has to be the next step, given what we've seen on Sunday. Sometimes, if this was an isolated incident and only happened in London, then we could say, well, these things happen. But it's not. This is happening around the world. Clearly a coordinated attempt to disrupt proceeding and force India to do something that clearly the Indian government don't want to do and frankly shouldn't do anyway. And I condemn, as I said, utterly condemn the actions of those people who cause trouble outside the High Commission, and my support and 100% support for India, or the High Commission, and all the staff that work in the High Commission, because they do a brilliant job on behalf of not only India, but the Indian diaspora in this country. And what I don't want to see, and this is very clear, is the peaceful Indian diaspora in the United Kingdom suffering either attacks or getting involved in violence as a result of these type of activities, because it's an outrage when most people just want to get on with their lives and act accordingly.
Lord Blackman, my final question to you, and this concerns every British citizen, because Britain is also a vibrant democracy where there is a huge amount of religious freedom. Now, one of the concerns is it's a handful of people, maybe maximum 20 of those who are standing there, but they're all wearing turbans. Now, this is very easy for it to spill over into all those who reject this movement and be branded and painted in the same manner. To see every Sikh being called a Khalistani is the biggest insult and perhaps the biggest disservice to the community. Now, that's the danger if these elements are allowed to perpetrate and they're allowed to continue with their activities. Will you try and make the British establishment aware of this concern? Because Britain has a huge number of Sikhs who have outrightly rejected this for years and years.
Absolutely. And the overwhelming majority of Sikh population in the United Kingdom are peaceful, law-abiding people who want to get on with their lives, are integrating in our society and don't get involved in Indian politics at all. You know, they've got their own lives to lead. And the reality is that, as you say, it's a very small minority, and we need to make sure that people understand it's a small minority. And the worst aspect, the worst thing possible would be Sikhs to be targeted with abuse or physical attacks or anything else as a result of people thinking, all Sikhs are Khalistanis, because clearly they are not. There's a very small group of individuals who are behind this, and they're out to cause as much trouble as they possibly can. And often when you've got small groups like this, they try and make a big noise about things in order to stir up trouble, and then try and get a reaction against all the people, for example, all the Sikhs in this country. And my message to all of our friends in the Sikh community is carry on rejecting these people, be outright and say you reject them and that you want nothing to do with them whatsoever, because that's the easiest way of ensuring that we can isolate these people and prevent them from either causing further disruption or causing damage to the community relations between the Sikh community and other communities in this country. And it's grossly unfair on those people. But I know many Sikh families who are horrified by what has happened at the Indian High Commission. And if they could, I'm no doubt they'd be down there demonstrating their support for India as opposed to demonstrating with these yellow flags supporting this separatist argument for Khalistan, which frankly has got no mileage whatsoever. I can't see that the Indian government would ever allow such a referendum or plebiscite to take place. Why should they? The vast majority of people don't support it, and they wouldn't support it. Just because people, a very small group of people call for it, doesn't make it viable.
Lord Blackman, you've got considerable clout and a voice in the British Parliament, and we hope you put this case forward just as strongly as you've put forward here. You have taken the right stand, and I thank you very much.
My pleasure, and I look forward to helping and assisting India in any way, shape or form that I can. Jai Hind.
Namaste. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. We got Puneet Sahani staying on with us, ladies and gentlemen. He's been listening to this conversation, but before we bring him back on, we just want to bring in what started all this. It all started closer home in Punjab. Amritpal SIngh, the chief of Waris Punjab Day, is still missing. Today is the third day of the manhunt operation launched by the Punjab police, and several of Amritpal's close aides have been arrested by the cops. His uncle Harjeet Singh surrendered, and the SUV which Amritpal was using has also been seized. On Sunday evening, cops raided Amritpal's residence in Amritsar and have found AKF insignia. On his walls, AKF jackets have also been recovered from his residence. Now let me explain to you that AKF stands for Anandpur Khalsa Force. Punjab police has also arrested 114 suspects so far. Now let's have a look at what the cops had to say. Inspector General Sukhchand Singh Gill said earlier in the day. Now he said, we have a strong suspicion of ISI angle into the matter. It seems that the ISI is involved in this matter. We also have a strong suspicion of foreign funding. 114 people have been arrested so far by the cops. 10 weapons have also been seized by the police so far.
मैं सारे सिटीजन्स को रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा कि किसी भी तरह की कोई फेक न्यूज़, र्यूमर्स उस पर बिलीव ना करें. फैक्ट्स पहले चेक कर लें. जो जितने भी इसमें बैड एलिमेंट्स इन्वॉल्व हैं उसमें हम आईएसआई का एंगल, उनकी फॉरेन फंडिंग, हमें सस्पिशन है कि इसमें आईएसआई का एंगल भी है, फॉरेन फंडिंग भी है. उस पर फर्दर इन्वेस्टिगेशन हमारी चल रही है. सो एनएसए ਜਿਹੜਾ एनएसए ਹੁੰਦਾ है जी, ਜਿਹਦੇ ਕੋਲੋਂ ਥ੍ਰੈਟ ਹੋਵੇ ਸਿਕਿਉਰਿਟੀ ਆਫ ਸਟੇਟ ਨੂੰ ਡਿਸਟਰਬ ਕਰਨ ਦਾ ਜਾਂ ਪਬਲਿਕ ਹਾਰਮਨੀ ਨੂੰ ਡਿਸਟਰਬ ਕਰਨ ਦਾ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਤੱਥਾਂ ਦੇ ਆਧਾਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਲਗਾਇਆ ਜਾ ਸਕਦਾ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਕੇਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਲਗਾਇਆ ਗਿਆ ਹੈ.
So what has happened so far in this crackdown against Amritpal Singh? The action has been taken against Waris Punjab Day, and this started on Saturday afternoon. The initial report suggested that Amritpal was arrested, and the cops later clarified that they are still on the lookout. There was some confusion. Several aides of Amritpal were arrested on Sunday as well. 4 aides of Amritpal have been flown to Assam, far away, to Dibrugarh, to keep them in isolation. Total of 114 people have been arrested so far by the Punjab police. Amritpal still remains absconding. A manhunt is underway. Internet shutdown in Punjab has actually been extended until Tuesday. Now have a look at this video. The visuals of Punjab police chasing Amritpal. These visuals have come through. Cops sources informed CNN News 18 that they had hit Amritpal's vehicle, but he managed to escape. So this is the visual of the chase sequence. But now this vehicle has been seized. Amritpal's uncle has also surrendered in front of the police. The SUV in which Amritpal was chased by the cops has also been seized by his uncle. So let's have a look at who all have been arrested so far. Harpreet Singh, close aide of Amritpal, has been arrested. Harjeet Pal Singh, Amritpal's uncle, has been arrested. Daljit Singh Kalsi, Amritpal's alleged advisor and financier, has been arrested. Amandeep Singh, Waris Punjab De member and close aide of Amritpal, has been arrested. Harminder Singh, Waris Punjab De member. Baljinder Singh, Waris Punjab De member, close aide of Amritpal. Gurveer Singh, Waris Punjab De member, and Gurinder Pal Singh Aujla, also close aide of Amritpal, has also been arrested. Now, intel sources to CNN News 18 have also given a lot of inputs. Let's quickly go through that before we go across to our guests. The intel sources say that Amritpal Singh met an ISI agent in Dubai. Amritpal was offered a huge amount of money by the ISI. He was asked to challenge Indian establishment. There is a well-orchestrated plan that is formulated to revive terrorism in Punjab. ISI provided the funding, shelter and supplied weapons by drones, trained all terrorists in Georgia before they came to India. Amritpal and the entire drugs connection. He claims to be somebody who's fighting the drugs menace, but intel sources are saying that Amritpal was building a militia of defiance in de-addiction centers. ISI helped Amritpal in running the illegal drug business. Amritpal stockpiled weapons from Pakistan in de-addiction centers. Amritpal procured cheap quality of antidotes of drugs. Inmates of the centers used to stage violent protests. Number of drones from Pakistan carrying drugs have increased. Amritpal has links with drug mafias in Dubai, UK and Pakistan. He was gifted an SUV by a drug mafia named Ravel Singh. So these are the details that we have. Hemant Atri, senior journalist with us. Rajinder Kumar, former special IB director, also with us. Namaste and Jai Hind, gentlemen. We try and see if we seem to have lost Puneet Sahni from the US. He was very patiently waiting. We try and see if he can join us back. But Rajinder Kumar ji, सबको पकड़ लिया पर अमृतपाल को नहीं पकड़ा. Suddenly they said we've caught him. Then they say he's not there, he's absconding. But the larger question is, you can see how big this net is. If a crackdown is happening in India, how are Facebook lives and congregations happening from the US, from the UK, from Australia? Why are consulates abroad being targeted?
No, this has been, see, the issue is that these so-called Khalistanis, they don't have sympathizers in India. Their following in India is very little. It is basically in Western countries, Australia, etc. The reason is that a lot of boys in 1980s, 90s have gone to, illegally immigrated to these countries in the name of, and they sought asylum, and these people, the Khalistani protagonists there, they helped them in obtaining the asylum. So this is a gang which has been being perpetuated since 1985 onwards. So it is there, and the Khalistan is there in Australia, America, and this thing, and these people are being prompted by Pak ISI. They come to Nankana Sahib, Punjab Sahib and other religious places where they are met by Pak ISI officers. They brief them, they train them, and they say that you do some action, and unless and until you do action, you will not be able to do, you will not achieve your aims. And if, Anandji, I will give you a small thing also, in my favor of my claim. Have you seen the photos of these people who have been, the pamphlet which has been issued by Australian police, are in the people who has attacked the Indian High Commission in London? They are all those people whose profile is of those the people who are illegally immigrated. None of them is a good person who is well qualified, who are the real Indians who are abroad. Most of the Indians abroad are basically engineers, technicians, doctors, and others. None of them is there. It is only the people who have migrated in late 80s and 90s who illegally went there and have settled there. And now they have to pay their bounty to the protagonist of Khalistan, because they were the people who provided them the letterhead, the letters, ISYF, KCF, all these organizations, Babbar Khalsa, they used to, instead of money, they used to tell them that you have to work for the Panth, and once they have taken the name in the Gurdwara that yes, they will work for the Panth, then they will do whatever they will say. So these are these people, not the real good Sikhs. I tell you, in Punjab, I served in Punjab for 6 years in the worst of the time. In Punjab, I was in charge of Punjab, Haryana, Himachal.
I'm aware.
When I was posted in Chandigarh in Intelligence Bureau.
So is
in
this
that time I have seen?
So is this a reflection
Yeah,
of the past,
I've
or is
seen
it
that-
nothing compared to what it was then?
No, it is not a reflection of the people in Punjab don't want it. There can be few people, and there are some people, who now again want to go to want to immigrate to these countries, and for
Right.
them this is a good opportunity to join a group like what is Punjab Day.
Punjab Day. हाँ.
So they are these people. So there is no.
So they are
if
more
you will find-
opportunists.
if you will-
Opportunists saying that if we join with these groups, they will facilitate our move abroad.
These are basically poor people who has no job or anything, and they are being exploited by these people in the name of
Interesting.
religion. Have you seen any good-looking,
Well-heeled, they're saying somebody who's well off, who's doing
Have you
very
seen-
well, who joins with these groups and works with these people.
Yeah.
So that's what you're saying. So you're saying a lot of these people are doing it out of necessity. This was a report that came in Australia also. A lot of people who are jobless, who are being offered some money, are standing there and holding these jandas and joining these protests. So they are like paid for people on that day because us din ka unka nikal gaya kharcha. Or some kind of work. But even if they are able to mobilize such people, it's also a concern because somewhere then they are able to try and create these acts of vandalism, which also allows them a certain level of prominence. I've just got an update, Hemant Atriji, just coming to you. We're given to understand that the British High Commissioner wishes to meet members of the community today at India House, Aldwych, London, WC2B. So they've given the address at 3 p.m. UK time. And that's the reason that a lot of people, guess who we were trying to reach out to and get them from the United Kingdom, from the Indian community, Indian diaspora, they had excused themselves. So Bob Blackman was kind enough to join us at that time. But this meeting, we will ensure 3 p.m. UK time is just about now. 8:30 it's going to happen, and I'm sure Sanjay Suri is tracking this. So we'll try and get an update of this meeting with Sanjay through the course of the show if we have time. But Hemant Atri, what is happening here? Do you agree with Rajinder Kumar that these are lot of these elements are saying कि वारिस पंजाब दे जुड़ जाए, इनके साथ इनका कनाडा में कनेक्शन है, यूके में कनेक्शन है, ऑस्ट्रेलिया में कनेक्शन, हमारा वीजा लगवा देंगे?
No, it's not like that, brother. It is somewhere else also. See, this gentleman Amritpal, he came to India on 22nd of September, and everybody knew with whom he is connected.
Right.
And we have to, collect all those dots to go into the depth of it. He is very, very closely related with a gentleman called Amritpal Singh Khanda, who heads Babbar Khalsa UK. And Babbar Khalsa UK is directly associated with ISI's main agent, Paramjeet Singh Pamma, who stays in Pakistan.
Right.
So this is the link initially. Now, whatever has happened today in UK, tomorrow it can happen in Australia, some parts of Europe, very small parts of Europe, then Canada largely, and some parts of US. The thing is, there is a lot of disgruntled, unemployed youth, not only in Punjab, but most of the Punjab unemployed youth, they are already in the trap of these gangsters, drug mafia, and most of them, many of them, they have, they have shifted for some greener pastures in all these countries that we were discussing. Canada, UK, Australia, and US in some parts, they sneak into those. Now, once you go there illegally, I fully agree with my previous speaker.
Right.
Once you go there illegally or legally or by any means and you are not properly qualified, what will you do? You will look for some, easier options.
Correct.
And easier option is the main thing that ISI hunts for. This gentleman, Amritpal, that we are discussing for last 3 days, what is he? He went to Dubai in 2012 as a trawler driver. Trawler is a heavy vehicle. He was nowhere a preacher. He is not much qualified.
Right.
He was just 20 years of age at that point in time.
Right.
But ISI sought all those qualifications which were required for a radical leader who can radicalize the youth, who can connect with them in their own language, and who can really make the impact that ISI conspires to be.
Right.
So this project, K2 project, once Kashmir is now, it's completely settled in a way as far as terrorism is concerned.
Right.
So ISI is desperate, and they are having a hell lot of a drug money. So what
Right.
do? They do all these kind of nuances, and government of India needs to understand one thing. They have to come very heavily on these kind of protests that happened in London. Maybe a few people. There's no doubt about it. Obviously, the mainstream Sikhs, they never aspire for Khalistan. Every Sikh who's a peace-loving fellow doesn't aspire for all this.
Yeah,
They
but here is a concern.
one and a half
My
decades.
point is, sir, along with the government trying to come down strongly, the leaders and the heads, the Panth heads, the Akal Takht, the SGPC, and all those people who are the heads of these religious heads have to come out and outrightly declare that these people are persona non grata. These people don't represent Sikhi. They don't have the right to wear a turban and claim to call themselves Sikhs. That has not happened from the religious leaders of the community, and it has not happened in unequivocal loud voices. Now that is a serious problem. That is a serious problem. It should not be allowed. One has to ask this question, that if the religious leaders and the so-called religious heads, do they approve of this kind of behavior, and the entire Sikh comm being dragged into this entire act of a certain set of mercenaries and vandals and goons and terrorists? That is something.
I 100%
that is something which stands out. I have to move on. I'm pressed for time. We've just lost track of time today on the show. It's already 8:43. I've got 4-5 different other updates and stories to share with us on the right for our viewers on the right stand. So Hemant Atriji, Rajinder Kumar ji, I thank you very much. I have to move on quickly. News coming in from Pakistan, ladies and gentlemen. Now the NAB has summoned Imran Khan's wife Bushra Bibi on the 21st of March. That's tomorrow, Tuesday. NAB will be interrogating both in the Toshakhana case. NAB has sought records of Rolex watches, necklaces, bracelets and lockets retained by Imran Khan and the First Lady from the Toshakhana. The precious gifts were gifted by Qatar and Saudi Arabia. So Imran Khan and his wife both will be quizzed and asked the whereabouts of these very, very expensive gifts, which they had no right to take out of the parliamentary treasury. It should have been left in that Toshakhana, but they have taken it out and they're going to be quizzed together. That's the update coming through. So more drama in Pakistan on Tuesday. Short break, stay with us.
That Xi Jinping comes with is less of a peace brokering deal, but rather perhaps to cement what Putin wants to project.
Possibly, of course. Like I said, if the conflict were to be frozen right now, it would be advantage to Russia because the Russians currently control about a fifth of Ukrainian territory. Ukraine, of course, would not be wanting to be seen as conceding any territory. And mind you, much of the heavy-duty arsenal which Ukraine was promised in terms of the tanks, the Abrams tanks promised by the United States, the Leopards by Germany, so on and so forth, they will actually get deployed and be in full service on the battlefield sometime closer to the summer, maybe in April and May. This spring offensive, which we're already seeing from the Russian side, Ukraine is holding on. You can see from what reports that we're getting in Bakhmut, that Ukraine is desperately trying to hold on to some of its positions in the eastern part of the country, but it is going to be a tough ask. It's going to be a tall ask from the Ukrainian army and from the Ukrainian soldiers. But I think as long as this NATO pipeline of funds and military aid and weapons keeps coming, Ukraine has an incentive to keep fighting, or at least has the means and the wherewithal to keep fighting. And I think that's going to be the critical aspect in this war. It's going to be how quickly Russia can force the Ukrainian side to come to the negotiating table, or how versus the resilience of the Ukrainian people and the Ukrainian forces to stretch this conflict for as long as they can and push back Russia to as close a position as possible as existed before the 24th of February 2022.
Right.
Xi Jinping's sort of main agenda in Moscow is going to be this: to try and size up Vladimir Putin and tell him that, look, you can't do this forever war. This war has been going on for the better part of over a year now. You cannot be seen as driving this war endlessly. At some point, you need to accept the reality that the West will not turn off that tap. And as long as the West is going to continue to keep pumping in money and military aid, this is not an even contest. This is as good as a proxy war between Russia and the West. And that is not what Putin wanted to start off with. He wanted a war between Ukraine and Russia, which he thought he could finish in a matter of weeks. Now it's turned out to be a full-blown proxy war between Russia on the one side and NATO, for all practical purposes, on the other side. So I think if the Chinese were able to pull this off, and I think it's a huge if, it's a huge task, it's of an order of magnitude that is far higher than the effort that's gone into the Iran-Saudi Arabia deal. If the Chinese were to pull this off, if Xi Jinping were to pull this off, I think in a stroke, just through this move alone, the world order would have changed. So I think that is really what the Chinese are playing at, and that is particularly what Xi Jinping is playing at, because he realizes this is his third term. He has at best maybe another 5 years, or if he can really stretch it, another 10. And this is the term when, you know, leaders around the world want to leave a sort of legacy, or want to leave some kind of a footnote in history. How is Xi Jinping going to be remembered? How is his foreign policy going to be remembered? He certainly will be known now for the Iran-Saudi Arabia deal. But if he were able to pull this off, convincing both Russia and Ukraine to move towards a ceasefire, to end the hostilities, that would be, for want of a better phrase, a coup. Nothing else, I think, would suffice in qualification for if the Chinese were to be able to pull this off. This is a significant meeting, no doubt about it, because this is the first major visit by the leader of a major country to Russia since this war began. This was on the 24th of February 2022, and the fact that Xi Jinping is going to Moscow is a big deal, because remember, the Chinese are just fresh off that very surprising deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia, which was brokered by Beijing. It was 4 days of secret talks that happened in Beijing, and now the Chinese are hoping that they can use some of that momentum, some of that leverage, if you will, into trying to broker some kind of a peace between Russia and Ukraine. China had a few days ago unveiled a 12-point peace plan.
Welcome back. Amid the Russia-Ukraine war, Chinese President Xi Jinping has arrived in Moscow for a two-day visit and has met Russian President Vladimir Putin. Now, Xi Jinping has said that he's on a state visit to Russia at the invitation of the Russian President Vladimir Putin, and he is confident his visit will produce fruitful results. Now, this visit comes at a time when he's officially been elected as Chinese president for the third term. It's also believed that the two heads of state are likely to discuss Russia-Ukraine conflict, as China has recently proposed a peace plan to end the ongoing conflict. Now, Xi Jinping has also been reportedly quoted saying that it is time for a multipolar world. Professor Victor Gao, Chair Professor Suzhou University, is with us. Suzhou University is with us. We also have, and he's also a former Chinese diplomat. And we also have Dhruv Katoj of the India Foundation. Namaste. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time. Professor Gao, if I may ask you, what is the approach that President Xi Jinping will have with respect to Russia and also the Russia-Ukraine conflict? Because the Western media says China wants to fuel this conflict a little more because it also wants to expend some of its arsenal, which is very close to its expiry date. This is the kind of talk in the Western media. So I would like your opinion on that.
Thank you very much for having me. I think President Xi Jinping's visit to Russia, as it is going on as we speak, is very important for two reasons. One is that China-Russia relations are very important in the world of today. The two countries are highly complementary, and the two countries share a long border of 4,300 kilometers long, which is unarmed, meaning both Russia and China have complete trust in each other, and they do not need to second-guess each other's strategic motivations, for example, and the two countries in terms of trade of all kinds are highly complementary. Secondly, President Xi Jinping definitely will talk to President Putin of Russia about China's peace proposal for ending the war in Ukraine in diplomacy and negotiations, and China is willing to play the role of mediator as it did to create and make peace between Saudi Arabia and Iran. So I think this summit meeting in Moscow will be very important, not only for China-Russia relations, but also for the Ukrainian war, as well as for global peace and stability. Now, China's role is simple. China stands firmly for peace between Russia and Ukraine. Peace may not be easy though, and it will take a very, very complicated process to bring both Russia and Ukraine onto the same negotiation table. And Ukraine also need to resolve the issue involving many countries which may not want to see peace.
So no supply of arms? So
no
supply of arms and ammunition to the Russians? Via the Middle East?
What's your question?
I said no supply of arms and ammunition to Russia via the Middle East?
From the Chinese perspective, we do not believe Russia need to buy any weapons from China. We believe Russia has full capabilities in producing nuclear weapons as well as conventional weapons. And Russia can handle multiple challenges by itself. What China is doing is to promote peace, is try to convince Russia and Ukraine that peace is the most important thing, and making peace is much better than making war against each other. And the war in Ukraine actually has the ingredients of spilling over to other countries and complicating the whole situation, and may even get out of control from conventional war to non-conventional.
Let me take this to General Dhruv Katoj. What would be China's point of view? Secure the Donbass region and secure your route to the Black Sea at the earliest, and just finish this war. Don't drag it on.
Thank you, Anand. Anand, I'll give you a slightly different view. In my view, before Xi Jinping's visit to Russia, which took place today, and which will continue for another 2 days or so, he visited Mariupol. Now, Mariupol is 40 kilometers off in the Donbass region and lies on the coast. Now, I think that visit has given a very clear message to the people of Russia, to the people of Ukraine, and to the people of the world, that what Russia has taken, that means the Donbass region, Zaporizhia, and Kherson. This entire coastal belt which secures for Russia the Sea of Azov and a very large part of the Black Sea. Russia is not going to negotiate on that. That the maps have changed, and I think that is one point which he wants to bring out very, very forcefully by that visit. Now, that visit has been followed immediately by the visit of the Chinese president. Now, what this indicates, in my view, is Russia, again telling the world, we have got enough allies. And while certain elements in the West may try to portray Putin as a war criminal, the very fact that Xi Jinping has come to visit him there nullifies all such attempts. So those coercive tactics, as far as the West is concerned, is not going to work. The third point I want to bring out is the Chinese plan for bringing peace is not going to work. No plan can work in this area, whether it is the Chinese plan or the other plan. In my view, what can only work is a unilateral ceasefire being given by President Putin.
Well, that is not going to happen till the time, like you said, he secures this region and he's got direct access to the warm waters. He's got warm water access. Gentlemen, I have to
secure his areas.
With due respect, I have run over time and overrun my time today on the show, so that's why I have to keep this very short. But with the promise that we'll get you back and have a longer conversation on this, we wind up this edition of The Right Stand. Thank you very much.
To keep pumping in money and military aid, this is not an even contest. This is as good as a proxy war between Russia and the West. And that is not what Putin wanted to start off with. He wanted a war between Ukraine and Russia, which he thought he could finish in a matter of weeks. Now it's turned out to be a full-blown proxy war between Russia on the one side and NATO, for all practical purposes, on the other side. So I think if the Chinese were able to pull this off, and I think it's a huge if, it's a huge task, it's of an order of magnitude that is far higher than the effort that's gone into the Iran-Saudi Arabia deal. If the Chinese were to pull this off, if Xi Jinping were to pull this off, I think in a stroke, just through this move alone, the world order would have changed. So I think that is really what the Chinese are playing at, and that is particularly what Xi Jinping is playing at, because he realizes this is his third term. He has at best maybe another 5 years, or if he can really stretch it, another 10. And this is the term when, you know, leaders around the world want to leave a sort of legacy, or want to leave some kind of a footnote in history. How is Xi Jinping going to be remembered? How is his foreign policy going to be remembered? He certainly will be known now for the Iran-Saudi Arabia deal. But if he were able to pull this off, convincing both Russia and Ukraine to move towards a ceasefire, to end the hostilities, that would be, for want of a better phrase, a coup. Nothing else, I think, would suffice in qualification for if the Chinese were to be able to pull this off. This is a significant meeting, no doubt about it, because this is the first major visit by the leader of a major country to Russia since this war began. This was on the 24th of February 2022, and the fact that Xi Jinping is going to Moscow is a big deal, because remember, the Chinese are just fresh off that very surprising deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia, which was brokered by Beijing. It was 4 days of secret talks that happened in Beijing, and now the Chinese are hoping that they can use some of that momentum, some of that leverage, if you will, into trying to broker some kind of a peace between Russia and Ukraine. China had a few days ago unveiled the 12th. Good evening, this is Brass Tacks. I'm Zakir Jacob. There were chaotic scenes outside the Indian High Commission yesterday in London. A bunch of Khalistani extremists tried to deface the Indian flag and raise the Khalistan flag instead at the mission. It was stopped by one brave security staff at the mission, but serious questions are being asked of the UK government and the London police. Perimeter security is always the responsibility of the local police, and that too, in this case, there was prior warning about this protest. Why was there not adequate security in place to try and deal with this incident? Will the UK government identify all of these 24 or so people who were there at the protest yesterday? Will they be arrested? Will their properties be attached? Will their passports be confiscated? And will their OCI cards be cancelled? All of that and more in just a moment. But first, the story of what happened at the Indian High Commission on Sunday afternoon.
Shocking scenes in the heart of London. A dozen Khalistani supporters gathered outside the Indian High Commission and pulled down the national flag hoisted above the building. This was in response to the crackdown against self-professed Khalistani preacher Amritpal SIngh. One Khalistani scaled the building's wall and lowered the tricolour. But an Indian High Commission official stepped out into the balcony and snatched the flag. Then the protester was handed a Khalistani flag, but as he tried to wave it in the air, the Indian High Commission official grabbed it and threw it on the ground. Soon after the attack, a massive tricolour adorned the Indian High Commission building in response to the Khalistanis. It wasn't just the desecration of the national flag. The broken glass on the door of the Indian High Commission shows how the pro-Khalistani mob was allowed to run amok. The senior-most UK diplomat in Delhi was summoned and asked why there was a complete absence of British security that allowed these elements to enter the High Commission's premises.
The culprits and the perpetrators of what happened at London yesterday to be quickly arrested and prosecuted. We launched a strong protest and also clearly indicated to the British authorities for the need for them to put up adequate security at the UK High Commission.
The incident has left the entire nation infuriated, even triggering protests outside the British High Commission in Delhi.
हम ये सब महसूस करते हैं कि ये भावना सिखों की नहीं है। चंद लोग जो कर रहे हैं उसकी सिखों की भावना मत समझा जाए। सिख ना कभी ऐसी सोच रखते हैं, ना कभी रखेंगे।
It's utterly shocking that this was allowed to happen. First of all, the fact is that the real problem is not inside the High Commission but in the premises outside, which is the responsibility of the local authorities, in this case the British authorities, to protect. Rabble of a dozen fellows shouting slogans, one chap climbs up, pulls down our national flag. This is a major insult which we cannot tolerate.
But it's not just London. Khalistani supporters attacked the Indian consulate in San Francisco in the US after officials removed the Khalistani flag from the building. They tried to barge into the office, painted "Free Amritpal" on the walls and chanted slogans in his support. Khalistani supporters also gathered near the Australian Parliament in Canberra, holding posters in support of Amritpal Singh. So the question is, why are countries giving a free run to Khalistanis?
Well, the Rishi Sunak government in the UK does have some answering to do, because sources have told CNN News 18 that advance warning was given to the British government of a possible attack. The local police were alerted a day before this incident happened Sunday. Despite that warning, no additional police teams were stationed outside the Indian High Commission. Instead, a dozen or so Sikhs, who are believed to be local college students, were allowed to run amok. One of them tried to climb on the walls of the High Commission in a bid to try and forcibly bring down the Indian flag. Now, last month, the UK government had set up a review in its scheme to try and prevent terrorism. That report, a British report, had warned against rising threat from pro-Khalistanis. It called on being mindful of the pro-Khalistan extremism that's emerging from Sikh communities in the UK, and a false narrative being disseminated by a tiny number of pro-Khalistan groups that are operating in that country. Such groups, it said, were spreading misinformation that the UK government is colluding with the Indian government to persecute Sikhs. The narratives from such groups glorify violence carried out by the pro-Khalistan movement. There is also praise for violence overseas and a simultaneous belief in a state-led campaign of repression domestically. This is a potentially toxic combination for the future. So-called Khalistan referendums have also been held in the UK and other parts of the world to demand the liberation of Punjab and the establishment of a sovereign Sikh state. Now, the first such referendum was held in London in October of 2021. It was held on the 31st of October to coincide with the day that Indira Gandhi was assassinated in 1984. Another round of Khalistan referendums were held in January of 2022 in Luton and Leeds. According to Sikhs for Justice, there was a big turnout for both referendums, but that is not how reality played out on the ground. Meanwhile, the man at the center of this Khalistan storm, Varis Punjab Day chief Amritpal Singh, has been declared a fugitive. He reportedly gave the cops the slip on Saturday following an intense car chase